All right, friends, our speaker today is a regular here, and he always has something that stimulates me and helps me to reflect on my life and how I'm living it, and I think that's for you guys too. So here is Timber Hawkeye.
I don't show up having absolutely no idea what I'm going to say. And I just wait to see what comes up. I never saw Lord of the Rings or read books, so that triggered absolutely nothing. But the word quietness that we started with today, I've had misophonia my whole life. It is a severe reaction to certain sounds and noises and loudness. So ever since I was a little kid, I would throw tantrums. No one understood why. I was just so overwhelmed by noise. So I've always wanted to be deaf. I just wanted to turn it off. You can close your eyes and not see. You can't close your ears. And that silence is that quest for silence, that desperation for quietness, is what I think is also the difference between prayer and meditation. Prayer is when you talk to God, and meditation when you listen. So I loved everything that was said, and even sung about Let It Be, because we can sing Let It Be, but my question is, how often do we actually practice that? Especially with everything that's going on. I'm hearing a lot from people who are so upset constantly that they're cutting off family members, they're unfriending friends on social media, they're not talking to certain people, they're just making the world smaller and smaller and smaller. And while I do believe that we are all in the same world, literally, physically, we also have our small little worlds, right? Our little tiny little planets that we live in, our little grocery store we go to, the post office, the neighbors, our family, just our own little small world. And when we feel so overwhelmed by what's going on in the big world, I like to shift gears. And instead of trying to make a tiny little difference in the big world, I think we can seriously benefit from trying to make a big difference in our small world, if that makes sense. Especially if you're overwhelmed by what's going on everywhere else. I have friends who, because of everything that's going on, have actually taken up ways to perhaps volunteer with visiting angels to organizations that goes for your elderly or hospice care, or just need someone to play cards with or be read to. And yes, you may spend the evening with a couple who have Alzheimer's or some challenges and difficulties or just loneliness, and bring them smiles and make them laugh. And that may not change the world at large, but it changed their world that day. You made a really big difference in that person's life. And that may not impact what's happening in politics. But if we truly rest in the faith we claim to have, and truly work on letting it be, then we trust that everything, as Brian said, unfolds in the way it's supposed to. We need to go through this to get to where we're going. And much like growing pains, it sucks at the time, but it's not. I mean, do you remember? It sucked, but we made it through it. And then we need to. And so I go back to trust. I go back to making a really big difference in my tiny little world, rather than feeling so unbelievably discouraged by trying to make a tiny difference in the big world. I don't necessarily think it's one or the other. And I think where we need to shift gears, and that's why I love the word quietness, is because I was so sensitive to sound, I always dreamed of having an invention of some sort that in the house there was a volume meter that like the lights would like turn bright or red or something to designate that my parents raised their voice past a certain level that's acceptable. I wish there was something like that in homes that just detected, hey, the energy just went off the charts. And while that's a fine fantasy to have, maybe one day AI will develop that. Just throwing that out in the universe. Let's hope that somehow we can plug our lights into something that starts flashing when someone starts yelling. What I do think we can have is an internal meter. When internally we start, I won't say loud as like in a volume sense, but when whatever we're experiencing is revving too high. Does that make sense? Like in a car, like you're getting in the red, and just something that goes, hey, come back down. Come back to center. Quiet your raging thoughts and when we quiet down, that's I think when we return to God, we return to peace, we return to trust and have faith that everything is unfolding the way it's supposed to. And we don't need to white knuckle our way through life. And it's funny that we maybe you guys do, but we don't coordinate like what I'm going to talk about, what they're going to sing about, what Brent's going to say. And yet, we're all saying the same thing differently. But I want us to go beyond saying it, or reading about it, or claiming to believe in it. I want us to embody it. So when you leave here today, and you're not letting something be, remember the song. It's whisper words of wisdom. Don't shout words of wisdom. I think it's better to speak quietly with confidence than to shout with obvious insecurity. Again, it could be my sensitivity to noise, but I hear better when someone isn't yelling at me. I'm more open to receiving what they're saying when it's not being shouted at me. Maybe that's me. But I've also noticed that when I talk to other people, they're more receptive when I show up. And I love what we said at the beginning of the last song, that we don't need to understand. We said we need to understand someone's story. No, we don't need to understand their choices. It's cerebral. We can't. I don't understand how people like the cold. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. It is my version of hell. And yet, my best friend in the whole world can't understand why I want humidity and island and warmth and just, to me, that's paradise. I can't wrap my head around why that makes her tick. And she likes it cold and wet and rainy. She was moving to Portland and she was upset it wasn't as cold as she thought it would be. I don't need to understand that to love her. I don't need to understand her choices. I don't need cerebral. I think our head gets in the way. I'm reading this wonderful book by Jo Taylor. You may know her from her first book called My Stroke of Insight. She's a neuroanalyst, a neuroscientist who experienced a stroke, so a certain part of the brain went offline. And it was the part of the brain that tells us that we are separate from one another. So all she was left with is this knowing that we are all interconnected, that we're all one. And she was in this complete nirvana until that part of the brain came back online and said, "Get a grip, Jill." You got it. So that was many years ago. She went through that experience and it took her 8 years to recover. But the book she just released is called Full Brain Living. And it really breaks down, we have our brains split in two, and there's one part that's really focused on me, what I feel and what I experience in the world according to me. And there's the other part of the brain that's all about unity and us. And each part has two characters. One is a thinking character and one is a feeling character. So the part that's all about me is what am I thinking, what am I feeling? It's all about me and how is this affecting me? And the other part, the other two characters, what are we feeling and how are we interconnected? Her point in writing it is to encourage us to have a brain huddle of sorts whenever we are about to say something, post something, act, and just check in with all the different characters within us to make sure that we are about to say or behave in a way that is aligned with our highest self. And her book is Character 4, the one who knows and feels and trusts and has faith and lets it be, so to speak. So I come here every other month or so, and always with the same message is let's go beyond thinking these things or feeling them or believing them or seeing them and embody them. When you feel within you that meter going red, when you get upset, when you feel those white knuckles, when you get so angry, imagine the lights are shining bright going, hey, calm back down. Not because anger is a bad thing, no, it's great. It's what says, hey, you're ready too high. And then how can we shift that so we act out of love, not out of rage? And I was thinking that over and over and over again. My invitation is always to live in line with our core values. But many of us don't know what those are. So go home and write them down. Write down your core values. And then go, okay, what if my core values is peace? Okay. Did what I say, was that peaceful? Did I say it peacefully? Did I increase peace in the world, or did I actually cause it? Don't just say it or believe it or think it, act it. Live in line with your values. Figure out what they are. Because when we do, then we are in alignment. And there's so much resistance from people. Like when I talk about figure out what your values are and live in line with them, people are like, well, that sounds simple enough. Do you have the discipline to do that? Do you have the discipline it takes to be tempted to do something because it tastes good, it looks good, it feels good, and then go, but is it for the greater good? And if it's not, to choose what's for the greater good, then what's best for you to go. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. What it does do is inevitably creates the calm, peaceful waters that for me, that's my dream world, is like a clear lake that's just reflective. And I think the word serenity implies clarity, so you can see right through it. And I think it was Alan Watts who said, muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone. Because when we see that there's waves, there's problems, there's this, we try to fix it. But by trying to fix it, we often make things worse. It's like trying to smooth out the waves. You're just creating more waves. Stop. Just stop. Just sit back and allow it to. It's not going to happen according to your timetable. The stillness, the peacefulness, is not going to happen with a sense of urgency you think it requires. That would be like picking a mango before it's ripe. Trust that it's going to take more time, more exposure to light, more nutrients, and it's worth the wait. It's worth the patience. That mango is going to be so juicy and delicious if you just wait. We're very impatient, I know. And I admire the passion that goes behind. I want change and I want it now. But if you introduce change too soon, remember what happened when they opened Jurassic Park too soon? See that movie reference, yeah. So, the quietness that I talk about is not just, can we do away with Harley Davidsons? No. It's not just quiet, it's out there. Notice the loudness in here. Have a meter in here that goes off and goes, hey, we're ready to go ahead. And then find a mantra, a practice, a prayer, a bell, whatever you need to pull over because you're in the way. Steam is starting to come out of the hood. That's not an indication to push it farther. It's an indication to pull over. You're overheating. Does that make sense at all? I'm really big on metaphor. Sorry, I'm a visual learner. And when I get angry, or when I watch someone I love, whether they're angry or they're just really passionate about something, it all, to me, looks the same. I don't know if that makes sense. When someone's really passionate about something, it's energetic, right? And so, even if what they're talking about is like this really great idea, it hits me hard because they're coming at it like at full volume. And so, I am more receptive when things are gently offered to me than when they're pushed on me. So I check. I can't tell other people how to live their lives, but I can check with them and go, where is my? Is meter the best word for it? Like a gauge? Because I think, dare I say, many of us have unplugged it, or short-circuited, or something. And even with the best of intentions, we are out there. It's overwhelming sometimes. So if we had gotten together and talked about what songs to sing, or what the inspirational reading would be, or I was thinking about the song, I Can See Clearly Now the Rain is Gone. Whoever it was, they all know the song, I Can See Clearly Now the Rain is Gone. And I remember writing it down and going, I can see clearly now the rage is gone. And right, it just changes everything. Because rage is so blinding. And again, anger is wonderful. It's a little indicator light that says, hey, something's off the board. But if we don't pull over, that anger turns to rage. And that's where problems happen. That's when we start blowing spark plugs and backfiring and all this stuff. So pull over. I can see clearly now the rage is gone. I can see the obstacles in my way, and I trust in faith that they are not there to stop me. I don't think God could put any challenges in our path that we are not capable of overcoming. So when I see an obstacle, I don't go, oh, okay, God, turn around and go back. No. Just like this morning, I was on my way here. Come down the driveway and a huge tree fell over. And it's massive, it's like huge. There's no way I can move it, there's no way. You need a truck and a chainsaw, a whole crew. And I go, okay, well, I can't move the tree. I still need to do that to unity. What can I do? So I got out of the car and I was like, well, that branch, it's like this big, broke off when it fell. So I can move that branch out of the way. I can move that branch out of the way, and I can go around the fallen tree. No timber deals, please. And still make it here on time. And then I reached out to the owner, and he said, all right, I'll reach out to someone else who's down the street, and they have a tractor, and they can at least move, but they're not, these obstacles, these challenges, they're not there to stop us or to get us to give up. I don't believe in giving up. I believe in growing up. And if acting to or reacting to something in the past didn't work, someone else said something about repeating the same behavior, expecting different results. If acting out didn't work out in the past, it won't work again in the future. Overcome. Find another way. And I think we have all the tools. We have everything we need. I think life is just like furniture from IKEA. We have all the pieces. We have all the tools. We even have the directions. They're quite simple. But sometimes we think we know better, and we try to put it together without the instructions. Have you ever done that? And you're like, well, it tells me to put this screw in first, but I'm already put this one, so might as well just put this one. And then 20 minutes later, like, oh, that's why they told me to put that one in first, because now I've blocked where I need to put that screw. And you have to trust the directions. Take your time, be patient with it. Don't think you know what's best. I certainly don't. The only thing I know for certain is that I don't know anything for certain. And that may sound chaotic, but it's actually really blissful because it removes any preconceived notions from the equation and just goes, this is what's in front of you right now. Who are you in relation to that? And if you've already determined what your core values are, and you said, I am peaceful, then you're going to respond peacefully to whatever is in your path. Because you've already decided that ahead of time. I am peace. If I am peace, then I show up as peace. But if you haven't decided who you are, you haven't committed to it yet, then one minute you're peaceful, the next minute you're rageful, the next minute you're emotional, the next minute that's gotta be exhausting. So an internal gauge, until AI figures out another way to determine your energy level and notify you by phone that, hey, because they have that now, right? The smartwatches that notify you when your heartbeat's going too fast. What if, okay, maybe technology is the way. Something that notifies you, hey, you're energetically shifting away from God, from the God within you. And you're leaning more closely towards the ego. And it's just a little gauge that goes, hey, slow down, pull over, check the oil, whatever you gotta do. I think meditation does that for me. Mantras do that for me. And my mantra, I posted about it this morning. One of my mantras is, what else? Because I think about the first car I ever had, and it was from the junkyard. My dad salvaged it. The driver door didn't work, so you have to crawl through the passenger side to get to it. It had all these quirky ways to turn on the lights, the radio, there were no windshield wipers. I had to have like an actual squeegee in my hand while I'm driving. But the bumper was held together by duct tape and all that, but it worked. It looked a little rough, but it ran okay. And so I often feel a lot like that car. It's got a lot of miles on it. It has a really hard time starting in the morning when it's cold. But it's running, and so I'm grateful for what works. And when I feel something that's overwhelming to me, rage, confusion, whatever it is, my mantra is, what else? What else am I feeling other than that rage? Because if all I focus is on rage, then it's all I see. But if I go, okay, the rage is there, I'm not going to nullify or deny it or pretend it's not happening. I acknowledge it. But what am I overlooking by being so hyper-focused on the rage? Am I overlooking how much I have to be grateful for? Am I overlooking what a difference I can make in my little world because I'm overwhelmed by what's going on in the big world? I don't like to say the word small or big because making a big difference in your tiny world is a really big deal. Showing up here today, finding reasons to smile, finding community, waking up today, that's huge. Let's not overlook it. Let's not be resentful or take for granted this breath, or this breath, or this breath, or this breath. My goal is to live in gratitude for every single moment, because it's a gift, and the only appropriate response to receiving a gift is thank you. So live in gratitude, and you will live in peace. Thank you.